Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. For my first two videos of 2026, I shared with you the different vegetable and flower varieties that we're going to grow in our garden. And the videos have been really well received, but I've been getting a lot of questions lately about how do I know when to start seeds. So that's going to be today's topic. And I wanted to mention that my goal for this year is to be really responsive to your questions. So if you have one, be sure to put it in the comments on the video and I'll do my best to address them. There are two main steps for knowing when to plant seeds. The first revolves around knowing when your last spring frost is, and the second is, what does it say on the seed packet? So let's look at those first. The first thing you need to know is when your average last spring frost is. And if you are new to gardening or new to your area, you can ask a gardening friend or neighbor. You can also ask your local Master Gardener program, and this is a free service that you definitely should take advantage of. If you don't know how to contact them, just do a web search on the words Master Gardeners and then add in the name of your county and the name of your state. And that will put you in touch with them because you're going to find their website, you'll see their hours, you can email them, you can go into their plant clinic and so on to get the information that you need. Now the third way you can do this is by going to the National Gardening Association's website. So I want to show you that on my computer because it's a pretty cool resource. The National Gardening Association's website is located at garden.org, and you'll notice there's a menu that says Useful Tools. So click on the little down arrow and you'll notice there is a link that says Frost Dates Lookup. Put in your zip code, hit continue, and you're going to go to this page, which is information about last spring frost dates and first fall frosts. And it's giving you basically the probabilities of frost in your area. So if you go down to the spring one, because that's what we're really focusing on for this video, you can see the probabilities of frost, and I'm going with the last 32 degrees here, based on different dates. And apparently here in Spokane, there's a 10% chance of a frost on May 18th, and a 20% chance on May 12th. I'm not really sure why these are blank because they usually aren't. But the thing is, it gives me a rough idea of when I can expect that there might be a frost and plan my seed starting accordingly. Now, one thing I wanted to tell you is that I've heard from a whole lot of folks ever since I mentioned this website a couple of years ago, and they've said, it is so accurate for the region of the country that I live in. So that made me feel a little better about recommending this as a resource. Now, that said, we live at a slightly higher elevation southwest of Spokane, plus our property seems to be in a bit of a frost pocket. Doesn't that just figure? So I'm more conservative and I treat the last week of May as the last time we might get a frost. And it could happen in June, so who knows? But the main thing is that you really don't know 100% for sure with Mother Nature. I also want to point out lower on the page is the same type of information regarding the chances of a first fall frost. So if you're interested in that information, make sure you check that out as well. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of this website, and it will give you some rough guidelines of what to expect weather-wise. However, I think that I'd have to say that my favorite option for determining your frost-free growing season is to talk to your local master gardeners. The other part of the equation for knowing when to start your seeds is to read the seed packet. And I have to tell you that the amount of helpful information on packets really varies by the company. I would definitely nominate Renee's Garden Seeds and Botanical Interest for having the most informative seed packets. Look at all of the helpful information on these seed packets. It tells you how long it takes the seeds to emerge from the soil, the depth for planting them, how much to space them, the row spacing out in the garden, when to thin them, how long it takes this variety to reach maturity so that you can harvest them, when to start them inside, and look at this, 4 to 6 weeks before transplanting them out in the garden. So that's the information I'm looking for when I need to determine when to start something. Most seed packets will say something along the lines of plant in the garden after the danger of frost has passed, or start the seeds indoors 6 to 8 weeks, for example, before the average last frost date. So that gives you a starting point for choosing when to start your seeds. So this is when you grab a calendar and calculate the time you want to start the seeds. And so if we use Spokane as an example, and we say that the last spring frost is somewhere around here, what I'm going to do is count backwards the number of weeks that the seed packet recommends for whatever it is I'm starting. So let's say we're going to plant something that needs to be started 8 weeks before the last frost date. Then I'm going to go backwards. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I would start those seeds the last week of March. That's how I figure it out. I like to plant most of my vegetable crops from seed indoors ahead of time and then transplant them out into the garden. But there are certain ones that I don't start from seed indoors, and that's because they don't like their roots to be disturbed, which is what happens when you're transplanting them out into your garden beds. So examples of these would be carrots, parsnips, beets, radishes, and turnips. So that means I'm going to plant them directly in the garden. I also wanted to mention that there are cool season crops that will tolerate some light frost. And so this is where you want to look at the seed packet, and they might say plant outdoors in the garden 2 weeks before your last frost or something along those lines. But that seed packet should have that type of information for you to go by. Now, in my opinion, the best thing you can do for yourself so you stay on track is to create a seed starting list so you know when things need to go in, and do it by date order rather than the name of the vegetable. So a few years ago, I created a seed starting scheduler on my website, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. And there's actually been 3 iterations of it, and the last one is my favorite. So let me show you where that is on my website, and then I'll show you what I've filled in so far for this year's seed starting needs. In order to find the free seed starting scheduler forms on my website, you want to go to susansinthegarden.com and go to the guides menu. And if you go down a little bit, you'll notice there's a link to the seed starting scheduler. So initially when I created it, I started out with this version. It's a PDF file that you can just print out off of your computer. I started out with this one with the name of what type of seed we're planting, how many weeks before the last frost, the indoor start date, the transplant date, and some notes. And then I decided I really didn't need this column because I really just needed the indoor and outdoor planting dates. So I decided to change it to the second version of the seed starting scheduler. And this one I changed to where it has all of that other information except for the weeks before the last frost, but I added in the days to maturity. So that's the amount of time it takes for a plant to reach maturity where you harvest it from when you planted it out in the garden. And then I decided, I really don't need to know that information either, not on that list. So this is my favorite version, but it's up to you, whatever you think would be easiest to work with. There's the seed type here, the indoor planting date, the transplanting date or direct sow date out in the garden, for example, like for beets. And then any notes that would be helpful to me. And again, I'm listing the items on here based on the date so that I can keep on track. So here's my 2026 vegetable seed starting schedule. And just ignore this top part because that's still in flux. But what I did in the first column is I listed the name of the crop and the variety we're growing and when I want to start them indoors. This is when I want to either transplant them in the garden, or if this first column is blank, that means I'm direct sowing these crops out in the garden. And then I have a column for different kinds of notes to myself. Some plants are going to be going in our greenhouse bed. Some plants are going to be growing in my green stock vertical planters. So all of this information is helpful for me, and you'll notice it's totally in date order, which is so helpful for keeping me on track. So this is the process I go through every year to determine when to start my vegetables and flowers from seed. But the cool thing is, since I grow a lot of the same vegetables and flowers every year, I can just take the previous year's form and put in those dates for the new form, and that is much quicker. So you only have to figure this out once, basically. And the other thing I do as the season goes along is if I start something a little earlier or later than planned, I put that date into the column. And same thing with the transplant date. If the weather's a little cooler or warmer than I was expecting, I note that for the following year. So there's always a little bit of a give and take each year, but this schedule has made it so easy for me to stay on track. Now, would you still like a little bit more help on knowing when to plant seeds? I've got a section for you on my website that's totally free, and that will give you even more detailed information. So go back to susansinthegarden.com, and you'll notice in the menu bar I've got Grow Vegetables. Click on that. This is my special guide that I created just for you guys, totally free. And if you go down a little bit to the vegetable grow guide chart, pick the vegetable you want to grow. So let's say broccoli, just for fun. This page is all about how to grow broccoli. And I give you some little known facts about it just for fun. What's better, to plant seeds or seedlings? And in this case, it really is smart to start your seeds indoors ahead of time or purchase seedlings at a nursery. When to sow them, and I have in here, sow seeds indoors about 10 weeks before your last anticipated frost. Transplant them outdoors once the danger of hard frost has passed. If growing sprouting broccoli, plant seeds in the fall for a springtime harvest. I've got how many days it takes the seeds to germinate on average, how deep to sow the seeds, the spacing of the seedlings when you transplant them out in the garden, the general amount of days it takes the plants to reach maturity, cultural information, variety recommendations, potential insects that might bother them, when to harvest your broccoli heads, how you can cook and preserve with them, and videos I've shot over the years on growing broccoli. So this is a great resource. I spent a ton of time on it, so please take advantage of it. Now, since today's topic was about when to plant seeds, it sounds like next week's video better be about how to start plants indoors from seed. So that's the plan, unless I hear otherwise from you. So remember to put in your questions and video topic suggestions in the comments on this video or any of my videos, and I'll see what I can do. Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. Happy gardening.